The holding cell reeked of ionized metal and burnt flesh. Sergeant Lyra Vaughn sat in the corner, her hands wrapped in torn strips of her own uniform, the fabric already soaked through with fluid from the blistered skin beneath. The Zelkari interrogators had been thorough, methodical even. They'd wanted information about human military positions, troop movements, anything that might give them an edge in the war that had been raging across 3 star systems for the past 2 years. They hadn't gotten a single word. Lyra had bitten through her own lip to keep from screaming, had focused on the faces of her squad, the ones counting on her silence to stay alive. When the neural prods hadn't worked, they'd moved to more primitive methods. Fire had a universal language, one that transcended species and spoke directly to the most ancient parts of the brain that understood only pain and survival. Still, she hadn't broken. The cell door hissed open and Lyra didn't bother looking up. Let them come for another round. Her hands were already ruined. What was a little more agony in the grand scheme of things? But instead of the clicking footfalls of Zelkari guards, she heard something else. Softer, almost cautious. Human. The voice was young, uncertain. Lyra's head snapped up and her eyes widened. Standing in the doorway was a Karathi cub, no more than 3 feet tall, covered in mottled gray and black fur, with large golden eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. Behind him, 3 more cubs peered into the cell, their ears flat against their skulls in obvious distress. The Karathi were apex predators from a death world 3 times as hostile as Earth. They'd been enslaved by the Zelkari decades ago, used as shock troops and cannon fodder. Their cubs were kept in breeding facilities, raised to be the next generation of slave soldiers. "What are you doing here?" Lyra rasped, her throat raw from suppressed screams. The lead cub, older than the others with a scar across his snout, approached slowly. "Core," he said, tapping his chest. "We heard you. Through vents. You didn't scream." "Everyone screams," said one of the smaller cubs, a female with lighter fur. "But she didn't," Core insisted. He moved closer, his nose twitching as he scented the air. Then his gaze fell on Lyra's wrapped hands and something shifted in his expression, something dark and primal. Lyra had seen Karathi in combat before. Despite being enslaved, despite the neural collars that controlled them, there was something in their species that couldn't be fully suppressed. An instinct for pack, for loyalty, for protecting those who earned their respect. Core reached out carefully, his clawed hand hovering near Lyra's bandaged fingers. "They burned you. It wasn't a question." "Occupational hazard," Lyra tried to joke. But her voice cracked. The cub's ears flattened completely against his skull, and a low growl rumbled from his chest. A sound far too menacing for something so small. The other cubs behind him picked up the sound, creating a chorus of predatory warning that made the hair on Lyra's arm stand up despite her injuries. "Core," Lyra said carefully, "you need to go back before the guards." "No guards," Core interrupted. His golden eyes locked onto hers with an intensity that belonged to something much older. "We took care of them. Elders taught us pressure points. Weak spots," he tilted his head. "You protected your pack. Didn't tell them secrets. You understand loyalty." Lyra's breath caught. "You killed the guards?" "Sleeping," corrected the smaller female. "Mostly." Core gently took Lyra's ruined hand in both of his, careful not to cause additional pain. His claws, sharp enough to tear through armor, were retracted completely. "Sergeant Lyra Vaughn," he said, pronouncing her name with careful precision. "Want us to even the score?" The question hung in the air like a blade. Lyra looked at the 4 cubs, saw the violence simmering beneath their youth, the carefully controlled rage of predators who'd been pushed too far. They were offering her vengeance, offering her justice in the only language they truly understood. But they were also offering her something else: alliance, trust, the beginning of something that could change everything. "How many guards between here and the compound exit?" Lyra asked. Core's lips pulled back in what might have been a smile, revealing rows of needle-sharp teeth. 17. But facility has many empty sections. Zelkari grow careless with cubs. Think we're too young to be dangerous? Fools, muttered one of the other cubs. Lyra pushed herself to her feet, ignoring the waves of dizziness that threatened to pull her back down. Her hand screamed in protest, but she'd been a combat medic for 6 years. She knew how to function through pain. "If we do this," she said, meeting each cub's eyes in turn, "we do it smart. We get out together and we get you somewhere safe. I'm not leaving you behind to face retaliation. Kor's eyes widened slightly. You would protect us. We are Karathi. We are... You're cubs, Lyra interrupted firmly. And where I come from, adults protect children. All children. No exceptions. Something shifted in the air between them. The cubs exchanged glances, some unspoken communication passing between them. Then Kor straightened, his posture changing from cautious to resolute. Then we are pack, he declared. Human pack. And pack evens the score together. Lyra nodded, a grim smile touching her lips despite the pain. Then let's go remind the Zelkari why you don't torture a human's hands. She flexed her fingers despite the agony, feeling the determination settle into her bones. I might not be able to hold a weapon, but I can sure as hell point you at the right targets. Kor's growl became something almost pleased. Good. We are very good at targets. As they moved toward the door, Lyra felt the smallest cub slip a clawed hand into hers, the one that hurt less, and squeeze gently. It was a gesture of trust, of connection, of something that transcended species and circumstance. The Zelkari had burned her hands, thinking pain would break her spirit. Instead, they'd given her family, and now that family was going hunting.